Hey guys, what's going on? I'm back here with, I want to say Coach's Corner, but something that I wanted to, that I actually struggle with a lot, and you've done a lot of videos previously on YouTube about this, and because I had a little bit of flare up, I traveled back to Slovenia for a little bit, back flared up, stressed, sitting in, I would say airports a lot for 10, 15 hours at a time and whatnot. And so because I've had a bad back injury about 14 years ago, I found a lot of ways, obviously through not only being able to directly learn from the Dr. Stormer Gills and Craig Levensons and Charlie Weingroffs, and having a lot of support and learning about back pain, I've been able to create a lot of protocols for myself, for our clients, to help out a ton. So what I'm going to do today is actually something that I did this past week to make my back feel a ton better, right? And I'm literally going to run through it. Now, the thing is with back pain that is causes are so different that I don't want to stand here and go like, this will fix everybody's back. But I promise you all of this is safe for anybody to try, and for a majority of people, I promise you'll feel better. Okay, so here's the deal. Decompression in most cases, in many cases, works. If you don't have, I'm going to show you guys two possibilities here of what I do anytime I'm struggling with any of this stuff. I'd come in, flip and decompress. Now, this is, we got this from Donnie Thompson and his Spud Inc. If you look it up, you can find it on Spud Inc. Like I said, I don't get any affiliate sponsorships and stuff here. This is just legit things that I use. They're very beneficial. And I'm gonna flip upside down and kind of talk you guys through this. So I'm gonna put this on my low back. There's other ways that you can do it, but these double bands, if you had other bands you could do this with, but this is made for it, right? So I'm gonna go whoop-de-whoop. There we go. On my low back. I'm close to the rig, so I'm gonna flip upside down, and it makes it very, very easy to do that. Okay, once I'm here, I'm gonna do pelvic tilts. Okay, so notice I'm gonna tilt my pelvis, posterior tilt, anterior tilt, and I'm thinking about almost doing like a cat camel and making my spine get taller, right? So I'm really decompressing. What's great about these bands is that I can unhook one leg and go hip extension. So basically I can move things around while my back is being decompressed. I can internally, externally rotate. I can get the adductor on stretch. Right, I can get my hammy. So this is kind of like, think hip hinge, right? I'm in a hinge position. I can rep that if I want to while my spine's being decompressed, right? I can go other side. And I'm gonna, speed this up. I might spend no more than 5 minutes, most of the time like 3 to 4 minutes doing these things, right? I can open, close. Like I said, the tilts are the ones that really, really help the most. I can do what's called with my hips, basically going that push-pull and level them out, because the hips are usually, like I said, that QL's tight, so this is gonna release that QL. It's already releasing right now. I can feel a huge difference. Boom, and I just come back out of it. Like I said, I would actually do that multiple times throughout the day. You might get a little bit of a blood rush, so I'm gonna be like, woo, a little wacky. So if you can have something like that, it's great. Like I said, decompressing multiple times throughout the day, super beneficial. If not, this is a great go-to to decompress and also have, I would say, release that QL. Now I'm actually gonna slide, let's go right here, okay? Jump up on this so I can have the feet down. Now, watch, that roller, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna scissor and get that heel down to the ground and other side. So making sure that it's coming from, bam, I heard a pop right there, like a good pop, decompress. So you can see how I'm kind of scissoring my hips, and this is opening up that QL on each side, but I'm also decompressing, right? I probably got about an inch or two taller doing that right there. Okay, so I'd start that before even doing, like for instance, foam rolling. Now, on this side, what I'm gonna do, whenever you have low back pain, usually that front side and the hips and the quads will all tighten up to protect, right? So going and finding those icky spots on that quad and doing what I call it just a pin and stretch, bending the knee. Not aggressively rolling, but like almost clipping that tight spot, going into extension, and then just working that. That tends to be a lot better to get a release, right? So I usually roll that front side, okay, on both sides. Now, here's the deal too, because back pain is different, I know for me, from where I had my issue, my left hip flexor gets really, really tight in my right adductor. So that's where I work. So something that's really beneficial that very few people do is called gut smash. I know it doesn't sound like the greatest thing, but we're legitimately, think about that kind of like that king crack. We're going here and finding those spots that are icky, right? And you'll know right away because you can kind of get into that psoas here and, ooh, I am on it. And we're not gonna roll, right? I'm just legitimately gonna sit on that. I'm gonna inhale and then exhale and let that ball kind of like try to go through that flexor. And it's releasing it. Trust me, it's releasing it. You'll be surprised at like how gunked up that part is. Getting in there. And of course, then you move it around and find that spot. Like I said, I'm not gonna go through the whole protocol, although right now I kind of want to because I know that this is gonna feel way better. Now you can do this on both sides. I'm just doing it on the left side because that's the one that's holding on for me and creating that rotation. But you can do both sides, right? Right and left, release those. Like I said, for me, it's left hip flexor, right adductor. So I'm gonna now go to the adductor, and sitting on the box is usually what's a lot more beneficial because I can get in here, right? If I'm on the ground, it's very difficult to get a bunch of tension, but I can get a lacrosse ball, bam, I'm on that adductor, and now I can do pin and stretch and just work that. And trust me, that is not the most pleasant thing in the world, but it's gonna feel so much better after I release that, right? All right, so we're just kind of working, like I said, and you're gonna feel it start letting go. There's a lot of ways that you can do this. Like we can do body tempering. If you have, somebody that can help you out with some of the soft tissue work, that's great. You guys have probably seen me do body tempering on others, Tony doing it on me, right? And it's definitely very, very effective. So how you release the soft tissue, I mean, you could have, a therapist doing active release therapy on this. But like I said, this is a lot of like do it yourself right here, okay? And I did legs yesterday, so trust, that's sore, right? And once again, if you feel like both sides are tight, you're gonna work both sides. Anytime we get some soft tissue release and something that's, essentially tight, we kind of want to get, like I call it long and strong, right? So I release this adductor. I'm going to go down into my frog stretch position, okay? And a lot of times I'd actually be on valve slides here, but for the purpose of right now, we can just stay here, get the biggest stretch that I can get. And I'm going to do pails and rails here. So I'm going to push into the ground with my knees, my ankles, and I'm gonna go for 10 seconds. And I'm gonna try to rip off the ground for 10 seconds. And then I'd go, notice how now I can go deeper into that stretch. I can get a couple inches deeper into that, and I'd do it again. Push for 10 seconds, pull for 10 seconds, right? So essentially what we're doing, right, we're trying to, now that we release some of that tissue, create in that length and tension, like create tension, meaning in that new position, right? It's important, right? So that we don't just release stuff and then go on about our day. We want to kind of like strengthen those new movement patterns, okay? From there, like I said, when we rolled our quads, guess what I want to do here too? I want to be able to now do some positional breathing here, knock out two birds with one stone. So most people will be very tight, and like I said, when their back hurts, what's happening is that, it's the hips tighten up to protect your low back, but your abs down regulate and hip flexors become overactive and they pull you into this position and then it doesn't feel that great. So we're gonna go here into our 90-90 couch stretch. I'm gonna get my ribs down, I'm gonna push down into my quad and push back until I get this nice line of tension that's opening up here, okay? And now I'm gonna do my breathing. So instead of holding for time, what I'm gonna do is take long exhalations and then inhale deep into, like basically down here, my diaphragm, right, my belly. And again. And I can get some of that extra psoas stretch with that reach. And then once I've got like about 5-6 deep breaths, I'm gonna push my foot back into that pad for 10 seconds, kind of like what we did with the frog stretch, right? 10 seconds I'm pushing down, 10 seconds I'm trying to pull away, okay? And re-ingrain that position. So we'd go left and right on that. Okay, so now, once again, not only do we open that up, right, we created some tension to re-ingrain this kind of new position. This one, and like I said, the sequencing is, you can switch it up a little bit. We always start with the decompression stuff, but these you can go kind of, you could start with cat camels, you could do them midway in between, which I like to do. So after I do that, you could do cat camels without the band. I do love them with the band because it gives me some form of something to push against. So I'm going to push the band out with my vertebrae in the low back to create some resistance, and I'm gonna let it sink me in. So now that band's pulling all the way into extension. I'm gonna push out, and I can adjust it exactly to where I want to in my low back to create that flexion and back into extension, right? And I do that for about 10 to 12 reps. Now, if any of this aggravates you, obviously don't do it, or get to the point before it aggravates you, right? So if you just can't get it as much flexion and extension, even getting some is gonna be helpful, trust me, right? So just don't go through pain, right? Uncomfortable, okay, but not through pain. But once you do this, you're gonna have more movement, it's gonna feel better. So cat camel is about 10 to 12 reps on that. Then on, I'm gonna go into a pigeon stretch and do pails and rails. Again, for me, my right side is much tighter because that's where stuff happens, so it kind of gets protective. So I would focus mostly on my right side, or I do left, or I do right, left, right, and do 2 sets on my right instead of my left, right? Once again, this is individual, but just for about everybody, when you do this drill, you'll know which side is tighter. So for me, it's the right. I'd bring it up. Now, if you're tighter, like I said, you could go a little bit lower in the box. You could put a yoga block under your knee. And from there, I'm gonna sit back till I get that stretch position. And then I'm gonna sit down into it, right? So now I'm getting that stretch. Now I'm gonna go into my hinge. I'm gonna try to close that gap. Woo! Right, so in that position, I'm getting a big stretch. I'm gonna push into the box for 10 seconds. And relax. Now I'm gonna try to pull it off the box for 10 seconds. Obviously that's hard to do, but I'm gonna attempt it. And then I try to go a little bit deeper into that position again and repeat for 10 and 10. And like I said, just doing that for 1 set, oh, that feels so much better. I mean, you feel the tension being taken off, right? Now, once again, the kicker is that when you're doing these drills, and if I was doing them in real time without talking to you guys, I'd be moving through this with intent, but decent tempo, right? All of this stuff would take me 10 minutes, maybe a little bit more, right? But now that I'm feeling looser, I'd ingrain this. So I'd go, okay, I'm gonna take a lighter bell, and I'm gonna do some squats. So I'm gonna bring that bell out. All right, that feels good. So I wanna ingrain that range of motion. Right, so I wanna ingrain movement. I wanna ingrain, like I said, strength into this and not just release things and loosen them up. Right, same thing with deadlifts. For instance, I'd probably go with a little bit of a heavier bell, but I'd work the deadlifts. I actually really like this drill from Smashworks, where you can take a box push my hips back, and I'm gonna push into the box as I feel my hammy stretch, right? So if you guys watch from the side here, right? Push my butt back, and I'm gonna push into the box. And what I do, I keep making the box shorter and shorter and shorter. So imagine if there's a box now here, I'm gonna push into the box here. Right, this is how to release some of that tension, neural tension in the hamstrings. Then we'd go to a lower box. And again, it's okay for my upper back to be rounded here. Push into that box and release, because like I said, we're getting that rib cage down, activating the core, which is important when you have low back pain. How do we get core activation when it's down regulated, right? So drills such as, side planks, doing a side plank, and even starting here, like if your back is really banged up, starting in this position is good, and then driving that into the ground, turning this on, right? Obviously, we can go here and just holding 20 to 30 seconds, doing an RKC plank, right, where we're pulling the ground, squeeze, hollow hold position. All these drills that turn abs on, like I said, and they're not obviously turned off, but just creating more tension is gonna be helpful as well when it comes to back pain. And then from there, this lateral flexion, again, this is something that I found for myself, and when we do it with clients, it's something that's reinforced a ton, is that when most people sit into that right hip, so that QO shorter, all of the obliques here are shorter. So when they do this lateral stretch, there's a couple ways that you can do it. I love the one on the TRX. It'll just open up that side, that lateral line, and make their low back feel so much better. So I'll usually step behind with this foot and then sit into that hip and try to go overhead, exhale, and then just sit into that hip, right? So once I feel that big stretch, I'm gonna take a deep breath into that stretch. Exhale, and go deeper. Whew. And it's like stretching the hell out of this, right? And as soon as I come out of it, so much less tension in my low back. So now we've gone through quite a few, I would say, positional breathing stretches, moving the spine, decompressing. And this is where now I start connecting some movements, right? So things like, think dynamic warm-ups, our Spider-Man lunge, right? So if I'm here, I want to start integrating movement now, okay? Like I said, these things shouldn't hurt, okay? Especially at this point in time. Now we're starting to move. If it hurts, it's, kind of like rule 101. If it's hurting, throw it out, right? And just do one that doesn't. Switching, right? So I'm being crazy intentional here. I'm punching that back heel out. I'm pushing this knee forward, squeezing my butt, thinking like tall spine here, right? And from here, like this is where I start moving and going, downward dog position, punch the heels into the ground, long spine. If you feel like you're tight in a certain position, spend some more time there. I'd even do a spinal roll here. Right, and then we kind of go for reps on these different positions. Coming back to, remember we did releasing the adductors, doing some activation. Now we're gonna integrate it. Tie sit, pushing the knees into the ground, getting nice and tall. Control, notice how I'm tall and not hinging into this. As tall as I can be, controlling it down. Then we switch our hips, do it the other way. And control down. And switching hips, right? Same thing, these are like 5 reps per side type of movements that we'd integrate. We're opening up the hips. And then standing up, going into this side lunge, again, Adductors, we open them up. I'm gonna step, butt's gonna go back. So I'm feeling that big stretch, and I'm gonna glide across, lock it out, right? And exhale. Try to get that length, pushing through the inside of the foot, coming across. Same thing, about 5 reps per side, being very intentional is about like where I would want to be with this stuff. And here's the thing, right? So once things are loose, in between doing reps of the movement. So if it's a hinge, if you're gonna do some type of deadlift, and you can, right? Just doing a body weight pushing into the ground, because now my hips are way more level, looser. Right, or a light bell and a kettlebell goblet squat like we did earlier, okay? And the thing is, at this point in time, I'm more than kind of like happy with going back and repeating the drills if they're feeling good, okay? Now, I would at this point in time do some standing stuff. I do think it's important that usually if you're pretty beat up with your low back, that you do most of the stuff on the ground. So doing your hip cars, because right, we want to start getting this range of motion back in the hip. Doing, it looks like a fire hydrant here, right? But we're gonna go up, bring that hip around, and then bring it into flexion, right? And again, up, internally rotate, bring it all the way around. Notice my low back is not moving here, right? This is all hip in the socket. It's gonna look different for everybody. So I do 5-6 reps of that. And then also want to turn on, or should I say, get some activation in my hip flexors. And I love this drill for it, where we kind of go into this dead buggish position. So one hand's gonna push the knee down, the other one, and I'm gonna resist, and this one, I'm gonna try to push down my hand, but I'm also gonna resist. So it's like basically trying to do this, right? I don't wanna do 100% intensity. This is more like 50% intensity for 20 seconds. And I'm gonna speed it up for you guys so you're not bored. Pretend it's 20 seconds, then I switch it up. Notice my knees aren't moving, but I'm driving, creating tension. And after 20 seconds, I put both of my, I would say, fists together and squeeze. And a lot of times you'll get a pop and an adjustment, right? And it'll feel good. It'll be a feel good adjustment. And then one of the last things, or a couple of things, is that I don't have a med ball. So imagine right now, my fist would be a med ball. So in between my knees, I would do a bridge and I'd squeeze a med ball to turn adductors on, okay? Turn them on and then slowly come up into that bridge position while I'm squeezing that ball, right? Turning everything on, right? Hold, still squeeze, control down, squeeze, 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 control down. And again, squeeze, 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 coming up. And again, squeeze, 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 control down. All right, so it's a combination of release, which is our soft tissue work, mobility, and then activation, right? And notice that through all of these different modalities, we were kind of alternating. And this is just stuff that like, it's taken me a little bit to take you guys through it. But this, like I said, it would take 10, 12, 15 minutes max. And I would go and train and do the exercises that I can. I mean, this is, I would say, a separate kind of video, but things like, hey, I can do belt squats because it's decompressive. I can push sleds. I can do single leg work as heavy as I want to, right? Single leg RDL with a landmine. So finding exercises that fit within that time frame where you might be bugging with your back. So, hey, should you go deadlift if that's gonna aggravate it? No. But can you do a whole bunch of other stuff? Yes, okay, great, load it. And a lot of times it'll make you feel better. But using these protocols to get you out of, having that tweaky, nagging back and being able to train and like doing this and being able to train and getting you better rather than like you're training but it's staying the same or it's getting worse, right? So I just took you through, like I said, one of the protocols that's very, very helpful for me when stuff acts up. Try it out. Let me know how it feels. Ask any questions. I'll be back with another Coach's Corner. Peace out.